All right. Welcome back to the Nick's Boots Start to Finish podcast and part 2 of the mysterious disappearance of 32-year-old David Langley. A bit of a recap on last week's episode. David Langley is a groundskeeper at Mount Calvary Cemetery in Saint Albans, Vermont. He's a quiet man, keeps to himself, and has no known family. On October 1st, 2008, Langley's landlord, Sam Dalton, called the police after going to check on Langley, since he was late on his rent, which he never was. When Sam got to the rental property, he noticed the door was open and Langley wasn't to be found. Sam reported Langley missing. Now, we are continuing the story from there. Part 2, as the detectives arrive on scene. Detective Ricky Calloway and his partner, Bobby McBride, of the Saint Albans Police Department, arrived on scene to a very frantic Mr. Dalton, giving a statement to a police officer. Detective Calloway and McBride walked into the house where other officers were investigating. We have a statement from Detective McBride summing up what the house looked and felt like. He said, "The house was cold, sort of like all the happiness was drained from it. It was completely empty. The amount of dust on the floor suggested that no one had lived there for over a year. There was no sign of forced entry or a struggle. It seemed to us that Mr. Dalton was lying about anyone living there." Calloway suggested that Dalton was under the influence and made the story up. When they confronted Dalton, he frantically told them he wasn't lying. But when asked when the last time he saw Langley, he couldn't give a straight answer. Seeing that they weren't going to get any information from Dalton, they sent him back to his home and told him to be prepared for more questions later on. With no lead, Detective Calloway and McBride decided to go to the cemetery that he worked at. There, they talked with the other groundskeeper, Elliot Graves, the security guard, Jason Carter, and the memorial service director, Sarah Coates. They talked to Sarah Coates first. This was what she had to say. "David is quiet, keeps to himself most days. I've probably had one conversation with him in the last 5 years I've worked here." When asked if Langley ever seemed distressed, she said, "I mean, he does dig the graves, so I'm sure you'll feel some type of way after that." Jason Carter also said the same thing about Langley. He said, "I don't know if you'd call him stubborn or what, but whenever I would say hello to him, he would mumble under his breath and keep on walking. Sort of like I didn't even exist." When asked if he witnessed Langley having any altercations with anyone at work, Jason mentioned Elliot Graves, the other groundskeeper. "It was the only time I saw Langley scream, let alone talk. I don't know what was said exactly, but Elliot seemed distraught after." Elliot happened not to be there that day, so Detectives Calloway and McBride went to his mother's house, where he happened to live. It is important to note that Elliot has had run-ins with police before, which landed him behind bars for 5 years. So they were skeptical that Elliot would talk to them. At first sight of them, Elliot was very nervous and shaking. When they asked him about the altercation he had with Langley, he chuckled. He said, "That was nothing. He was just mad I didn't clean the lawnmower after cutting the grass." Detective McBride asked if it was a common occurrence for him to yell about stuff like that, to which he responded, "No, it was the first time. And I was having an off day since my mom got sick, and I ended up forgetting to clean the mower that day." While they were questioning Elliot, he asked if he could smoke a cigarette, and they allowed him. We have a quote here from Calloway that says, "I was watching him from a distance when I noticed a buildup of a black substance under his fingernails. When I asked him why his fingernails are like that, he said it was from digging the graves since Langley hadn't been to work for some time." McBride asked how long it had been since Langley was at work, and Elliot said, "A week, maybe 2. I don't know, I stopped counting after the 3rd day." To which McBride asked, "So you didn't find it suspicious that he wasn't at work?" And Elliot laughed and said, "Listen, I worked with the guy. Doesn't mean I liked him. I tried to stay away as much as possible, and now, if you don't mind, I need you to leave so I can take care of my mother." He closed the door in their face. Calloway and McBride both agreed that Elliot was acting weird and decided to keep an eye on him. Calloway suggested that Elliot wasn't lying and that they should go back to Langley's house to see if they missed anything. When the detectives got there, they decided to split up. McBride went inside the house, and Calloway went to the backyard. According to Detective Calloway, the yard was empty except for a shed in the corner. There was a lock on the door, and he radioed McBride asking if this shed had been looked through. McBride said, "I looked through the back window at the shed, and sure enough, there was a lock on the door now. I told Ricky that it wasn't locked when I looked through it the other day." Calloway walked to the side of the shed that had a window and looked through it. It was hard to see, but he could tell there was something in the middle of the floor. Statement from Detective Calloway: "My eyesight is already bad, and with how dirty the window was, I wasn't too confident there was actually anything in there." Calloway recounts grabbing a large rock from the side of the house and smashing the lock open. Statement from Calloway: "I knew it was unconventional, but I really wanted to see what was in there." They opened the door slowly and peeked inside. And in the middle of the shed, on the floor, were a pair of easy break-in 1964 brown Builder Pro HDs. And unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Come back next week for part 3 of the mysterious case of David Langley. Thank you. Hard rock? All rocks are hard, large, okay. I knew it was unconventional, but I really wanted to see what was there. God damn it. In his police report. Yeah.